everyone, Alyssa with the Reinventing You Challenge. I'm so excited to be here today. We have a very special guest. I'm really grateful and honored that our guest speaker today is Patterson Emesibe. Patterson is not only a coach, leader, and entrepreneur, he is a man that has overcome great adversity throughout his life. He is a model of what it looks like to reinvent yourself, not once, not twice, but continuously to become the best version of himself. From losing both his parents at the age of 12 and battling with depression, anxiety, and trauma, struggling with being overweight in his teens and as a young adult, to transforming his mind, body, and life to become the man you see today. Patterson's huge heart and desire to make an impact in the lives of others inspired him to co-found a nonprofit organization called the EpiCenter, with an aim to help at-risk youth achieve their goals in education and employment and sustain a healthy lifestyle, mentally, emotionally, and physically. This is a man committed to the self-work journey that leads people to become the people they want to be. He has an astonishing ability to meet people with where they are at any given moment. So if you need a big hug, a good joke, or to be inspired with a great laugh, you've come to the right place when you meet Patterson. Welcome, Patterson. I'm so excited.
Hey, Alyssa. Hey, everybody. How you doing? I hope everyone's here and having some fun. I really love the intro. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I love it. You have an amazing journey. I'm so grateful that you're here to share your story. And I know you've reinvented yourself many times over, but I know that you have a lot of value and experience in life, and you can share, and your journey is going to enhance the lives of others just by you being honest with and open about your experiences in life. And I can't thank you enough for using this platform to share and teach. And so again, this Reinventing You 7-Day Challenge is the goal here with our coaches that are coming on is to share your story and any guidance or direction or strategies you might have that you can share with the audience in the group. So please dive in with whatever story you would like to share.
Most definitely. So I'll give people a little bit of background about me. So my parents are immigrants from Nigeria, and I'm one of 5 kids, the oldest. And I'll kind of get into my trauma story, which led to my weight gain. So my parents got divorced in 2002, or 2001, and then we went to foster care in 2002. My dad had killed my mom and my grandma, which had sent me and my 4 siblings into foster care. And then from there, that's when I started having trouble with gaining and losing weight until I was put in sports in high school. But then after I was done playing sports, I went on this 10-year journey of weight gain. But also in that time of trauma, I was shy. I was trying not to connect with people. I was kind of running away from connection and relationships. There are times where in high school, I became like the most popular kid because everyone was like, Patterson knows everybody. But I was actually hiding and running away from intimacy. And so when friends would ask me about like, what's going on, or who are you, or those deeper, like get to know you questions, I would crack a joke and then run to the next set of friends and just bounce around from friend group to the point where it's like, everybody knows Pat, and then everyone gives hugs to Pat. So this persona started developing over my trauma, which was actually to protect me and keep me safe. So that's where the eating came in, the jumping around from friend group to friend group, but really just not addressing what was going on inside. I was an anxious eater, a depressed eater, and at some point, I just really hated everyone who I interacted with. I wasn't in a great space to really connect and be friends with folks. But then there were times where, and I think the healing really started when I started, playing sports, but also there are times where I would share my story to other people who were depressed or other people who wanted to commit suicide. And those folks would be like, Pat, thank you for sharing your story because that helps me go on another day. But for me, it just left me empty because it's like, well, I'm glad you got help, but it's made me feel more lonely on the inside. And so there was like gift that was emerging inside of me, but I wasn't recognizing it because I was in this dark, lonely place. Like I didn't have parents. I had to figure out, my siblings are going to get everything they need. And then what am I going to do? I mean, I had an aunt and uncle who was supporting us, but they also had their own kids. And so their attention was split. So it was me trying to figure out as the oldest son, what I was going to do to support the family, and the siblings I was given. Then I went off to college, or my senior year, I stopped playing sports. And so that's when the weight gain began. So I weighed about 180 after my junior year playing sports. And I went from, in a 10-year cycle, from 180 to 360. So essentially doubled my weight. Yeah. So I added a whole nother Pat onto who I was. Wow. But in that time, I was, I had a lot of shame around being big. I never wanted to take off my shirt, never wanted to go to the pool. Just a lot of deep anxiety. Sometimes there would be times where I would even say the funnier I got, the more depressed I was. There were times where I was using humor as a way to isolate, to hide myself. But the one thing I didn't like about myself, I hated the popularity, because I really, when I was depressed, I just wanted to kind of blend in or not stand out. But I was 6'3" Black guy who was known for hugs. And so it's almost like on some level, I'm trying to run from the persona I was creating, which is also making me more depressed. But also on another level, it brought me joy. And there was this like crucial time in college where, I started sharing, I started accepting what was going on in my life, that, maybe things can be better, maybe things can be different. I started to become an advocate, started advocating for foster youth and sharing my story. And that was like the first time I would share my story. Because someone told me, Pat, sometimes your pain is for somebody else. So I would share my story to help foster youth coming after me, and to help with legislation, until I started doing public speaking. And that would help, and I would go do different shows. I'd do different things, but there was still this deep rooted like depression. Even though I started liking people, started loving them more, started just booming out with love, like becoming the thing that I was running away from the most, I still had this like dark pit in my stomach of trauma that was the weight was kind of protecting me and keeping me safe inside. And it wasn't until 2016 when I went to go see my father in prison, and I talked to him, and he shared how, that time he wished he'd go back in time and change things. And, he said that, he just, because of the separation, he became so angry and just ruminated in that until it became rage. And then that rage ultimately made him do what he needed, made him do what he did, and that's what he said to us. And, I cried, my brothers cried, and we just felt that in some way that was kind of a gift that he gave back to us. It was like, hey, I'm sorry, in his own African Nigerian way, and in a prideful way. We're all very prideful people. So in his prideful way, he just said his pride and his anger made him do that, and he wished he had not done that. And then in that time, Nigerians are very direct. So in that time, my father was like, Patterson, you're fat. Nigerians are very direct. It's sometimes we don't even see shame in the communication. Sometimes we just say something, it's like boom, even though it's like there's a lot of shame inside of it. But Africa's like, no, it's just straight and direct. But you're fat. Promise me you'll lose weight. And I promised him I would lose weight. And then the next couple months, I didn't start the weight loss journey then, but he would call, because folks would sneak in phones, through the anal cavity. Some people know, and so he'd call me from random cell phone numbers. I always knew it was him. And we started trying to have an adult relationship. Sometimes I pick up, sometimes I wouldn't, but that was also healing for me, because being able to have an adult relationship was helping me accept myself and love myself more, because I, lost that father figure from the age of 12 all the way until, having this relationship at 26. And then in that summer, he had passed away in the prison. And I felt this deep, like, foreboding, like this dread that I couldn't keep my promise to my father. And in Nigerian culture, like, when you make a promise, you keep it. And that's just something that's been ingrained in me. And so, like, I had this promise that I'd made to my father, to lose weight. And I had it in those 6 months, and then he passed away. And so I remember I got a call. I called my family members. We were all crying, boohoo. And I remember going to the mall, going to Cinnabon to get 2 cinnamon rolls. I told myself, Patterson, these are the last 2 cinnamon rolls you're gonna have for a while. It was like my funeral. It was a ceremony. It was a death. It was me eating that and gorging it. It was because I felt sick afterwards. It was just like, it just made me feel internally sick. And I was like, it could have been all that sugar. 2 cinnamon rolls, that's a lot to consume. I think it would make anybody sick, but I felt sick. Yeah. I really attached that sickness to the pain of not keeping my word. And from there, I started this weight loss journey. So I had to go back inside myself to figure out, like, okay, what do I know about health? Well, I had a roommate in college who was trying to be a bodybuilder. And I remember him eating just chicken, brown rice, and broccoli or veggies. So I was like, okay, I'll eat that, but eat it smaller portions. Mm-hmm. And then at the time, Herbalife was big. And I knew, Herbalife was like all the other folks, their meal replacements. So it's like 200 calories. So they'll satiate you for a couple hours until you have your next meal. So that way you can lose weight. So I had an Herbalife shake in the morning, what I mixed with spinach, and an Herbalife shake at night, just plain by itself. And then the middle 3 meals were chicken, brown rice, veggies. chicken brown rice. And I ate that for months. And then I drank I drank a liter, not a liter, but 16 ounces of water an hour to, or 30 minutes to an hour before every meal to help with the digestion process. Then I was biking, or I was walking 30 minutes in the morning, biking 30 minutes a night on a stationary bike. And I would up the night one. And at one point I was biking 90 minutes a night and then biking 90 minutes in the morning. And one thing that really helped me was that I had to, and also in the deep reflection, I had to figure out what is stopping me from losing weight. And I realized it was my friends. Every time I hung out with them, we eat. I eat. Go with this friend, I eat. Go with this friend, I eat. And so I had told some friends like, hey, I'm not gonna hang out with y'all as much anymore until I get this weight thing handled. Some of them were like, yeah, Pat, you go and do it. Some friends were like, man, you can eat with us. But then when I would eat with them, they, tell me, eat this, that. So I had to really isolate myself from folks to really find myself in the weight loss journey. And then I had to make new friends. I had to make friends who were healthier eaters. Sometimes I'd go out with friends, maybe because I hadn't seen them in a while and I wanted to catch up. I was the guy who would go into Lollapalooza's restaurant, bring a little Tupperware thing in my backpack, and when no one's looking, I add it to my plate of food because they had chicken and veggies. So I'd like, let me get the lentils on there, So, and people be like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm sticking to my diet. Like, I'm going to make sure that this happens. I make the result inevitable. And so I remember, so I weighed 360. I didn't take any pictures. Before pictures, I thought I'm not going to lose any weight. After the first month, I lost 26 pounds. I jumped on the scale and I was like, whoa. Then I took photos. And let me tell y'all, my titties are big. My titties are probably bigger than most of the listeners on there. I'm listening. If you go on my Instagram, you'll see it. I'm just, you would have hugged him. When I was big, Pat, people would always say, Pat, those are the hugs that when you hug, you just sink in and you forget all your troubles. And sometimes when people tell me that, I'm like, dang, I wish I could clone myself or go back in time and hug that man just to see what people were talking about. Because I was the one giving the hugs, obviously, but it would be cool to receive that kind of hug and that kind of tenderness and to be like, everything feels okay right now. Like this warm embrace is taking care of me. So in 6 months, I lost 100 pounds. And by March 2017, I had went from 360 to 225. And so, yeah. And I didn't hang out with friends until after, really hang out with friends until after the 6 month mark. That's when I kind of showed up more out and about. But by then I had more energy. And I also love hacks. So the first 20 days of my weight loss journey, I used pre-workout because at 360, there's no energy to wake up in the morning. I was, I added it to my water bottle, put it next to my bed, went to sleep. When I woke up, the alarm went off, I hit snooze and I drink it and I fall back asleep. So I didn't have energy to get up. But then 5-10 minutes later, I was like, boom, because all the caffeine is kicking. So then I'm like, okay, well, get all the tinglies and shivers. So it's like, okay, let me go work out. Let me go on a walk. And then here's the real life hack when you're losing weight. And this is what really helped me grow. I think 80% of the time it was just cardio. I started adding weights in there, but it was mainly cardio because I wanted to lose weight before building muscle. But the main hack was when I was doing cardio, I was listening to an audiobook, either self-help, business, self-growth, things on spirituality, things on religion, Christianity, all my interests, social work, holding space for folks, communication. And essentially I was reinventing who I was. It was, I'm losing this weight, but I want to listen to things that bring me interest, because when you cut all your friends off, you're also cutting off your social influences, which kind of reminds me of COVID and social distancing right now. And so when I did that, I had to supplement that because I couldn't just get rid of it and not replace it. I had to replace it. And so in replacing it, hold on, let me plug in my laptop. Hold on. Turn on the light right there. Boom. I had to supplement audiobooks for that social influence that, here are the people who may not be alive, or some authors are dead, some are alive, but having that person kind of talk to you is almost like that social relief, here's a person. But also I'm learning. I'm taking in information. And then also a couple of times I'll listen to documentaries, because documentaries on the bike, when you feel tired and you're watching them, you almost forget that you're tired. Yeah. It's hard to work out without music or something in your ear. But after 9 months, I remember some of the trauma stuff had disappeared, because before I'd realized that some of my hugging was just me finding safety in other people as well. And I started giving less hugs out and being more intentional about hugs. I started to, tell people about my weight loss journey. I started to let folks know, some things are traumatizing. Sometimes I was loud in the space because, I'm an empath. It would be too much stimulation. And so in order for me to get rid of some of this, I'd have to be louder. I'd have to push the energy back out. But as I was working out and doing meditation and journaling, I was able to kind of no longer do those pat things that I was known for. So some of the persona that I had started to melt away because it was induced by trauma. And I know that created some risk between me and some friends because they're like, oh, Pat's something. Some people are like, oh, Pat's the same, which parts of me were the same. But there are parts of me that there were distinct differences that people noticed. I'm like, Pat, this is different about you. I'm like, yeah, it's some of that I had to let go when I let go of Big Pat. And Big Pat served me and got me to this point because Big Pat was the one who started the nonprofit. Big Pat was the one who was doing the public speaking. Big Pat was the one who was, doing all these great things. So that way, when I was able to kind of get to a space where, I'm not feeling the trauma anymore because I cried a lot. Sometimes I'd be on the bike and I get overwhelmed with emotion. I start crying. I'm literally on the bike working out and I think about something from the past and boo-hoo, crying, and then I'm one of those people where if I start crying about one thing, I'll think about 5 other things to cry about. I'm like, look, if we're going to be in this space, let's process. Let's push through it. Let's go.
Let's just go all in. I want to summarize a little bit and just, you shared so many valuable nuggets and I just want to speak to it. I mean, I literally was crying at one point. So I just, you've gone through a lot in your childhood. Not only, you spoke to, you lost your parent, like your mother and your grandmother. You now are in the foster system. So the stability, and then the one person you still have alive is not around because he's in prison. And I'm sure the communication was really limited. And, the uncovering the truths of like, you wore a lot of masks, like in your ability to function in life, your survival technique, we all put on these masks as society and just the challenges that we're going through. We're just striving to get through it. And you hid through your humor, through your weight, through,
becoming social as well. I didn't share that piece. I remember being in high school and seeing people crack jokes and then listening really intently and then trying to use a joke with somebody else until I could figure out how to make people laugh. Because I wasn't a funny person before my trauma. I was a shy, quieter kid. And then I remember like being in conversations or even walking by people and just listening to the cool kids until, as I said, I became popular on accident. Like, I wanted to blend in, but I didn't want to stand out. But by mimicking others and copying things, I was able to almost perfect or take it to the next level because I was really I almost observed them like a student. The behaviors that I wanted to copy and emulate because I wanted to blend in, but instead it kind of made me stand out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's amazing. And it's I think we all kind of pick a mask that aligns with us most, and maybe that you just always wanted to be that funny kid, or you wanted
I believe so. Yeah. My father was a funny, charismatic person. So we saw that growing up, but I didn't get all of that growing up. And because of the trauma piece, it got halted. It was arrested at that point. And so I like what you're saying. And I've never put the 2 and 2 together. It's like because I knew that in other ways, whenever I see people having crisis, I want to go and help it because I was always trying to save my mom and dad from fighting. I just think I felt like I couldn't do as a kid. But also in that, I was also emulating the things that I saw in both parents where it's like, oh, that's what my dad did. And become it. Then I was like, oh, wait, I didn't know that when you become a social person, you get different issues. Right? It's almost like when you're the shy kid, your issues are, it's shy. But when you're the social kid, and you want to be the blended in kid. Now their problems are, how do I deal with all this attention, all this stimulation, all this stuff,
Yeah. And you were just in looking at my notes, it was like that hugging, that sharing your story, that it was fueling this continuous mask. And until it's almost like you're interacting with your dad, that piece of you that we all are seeking out, and we often are looking for just kind of a nugget of influence, a nugget of motivation. And it sounds like that moment of connection you had with your dad when he shared the story of his regret, which makes me emotional. And I got the chills. Just, I couldn't imagine the pain that you guys went through, but also the beautiful healing that came from that moment. I mean, that's just amazing. But then that was almost like the piece that said, okay, I promised him this, and this has now become a negative motivation, and you
Mm-hmm.
use that to fuel you forward and to really make progress. But what I'm really curious about is that you had kind of a reward system of recognizing that, okay, I lost 26 pounds in the first month. You were
Mm-hmm.
changing your influences. You were trying to become this next version of yourself. You're fueling your mind with new positive thought processes.
Mm-hmm.
But where, if any, was there a real struggle with maintaining it, or did you feel really like?
Oh, yes, there was a struggle. So I lost the weight. So I'm getting this positive, like after the 26 pounds, okay, keep doing what you're doing. I'm going, I'm moving. I lost the weight. Boom, 225. Again, cool. I'm gonna stay here forever. I feel happy. I'm like thanking my dad internally for telling me that. And then dying, like in this weird, sick, twisted kind of human way where it's like that can motivate us. It's like his last gift to me. And then I started eating normal, but I started gaining weight again. And I was like, what is going on? And so I'd have to work out even harder. And I was like, something's wrong here. So then knowing me, because I'm like, okay, I did a lot of research, because also when I was losing weight, I would also, so if I wasn't doing things on like listening things on self-growth, I was listening things about diet. So things about weight loss, like, so that way in health, so that way as I got into this new stage, I could maintain it. So I never knew how to maintain the weight. It was just like sports maintained it for me. Having this coach tell me to get on the line and run maintained it for me, but I didn't know how to do it myself. And then I think some folks know, and the show's no longer around, but it's called The Biggest Loser. The Biggest Loser was a show about these folks who are, like 400 pounds or bigger, losing weight and kind of getting back to the size I'm at right now before, they gained all this weight.
Yeah.
And then one thing happened, and I think the reason why the show didn't continue on is because they found out that these folks all gained weight back to, or even more than they weighed before. And then so a researcher named Dr. I think it's Jason Fong was researching this and figured out that when we do calorie deficit workouts or calorie deficit diets for a long period of time, what happens is that our resting metabolism will shrink down to the calorie intake of your diet. And so even when you reach your weight, if you're eating, let's say your resting metabolism before the weight loss was 2,000 calories, and then you did a calorie restriction of 1,200 calories. When you get to your goal weight and go back to normal, trying to eat 2,000 calories, you're actually at a surplus of 800 calories now, because your body's adaptive. Our bodies will always adapt to whatever the conditions are for our own survival. But the body didn't know that you were losing weight that fast for you. It just thought, oh, this person's in a decrease. They're probably gonna stay there forever. So he found out that when people fast, you can reset your resting metabolism. So that year, I started playing around with intermittent fasting until the point where I fasted water only for 30 days straight. And I was actually in grad school to get my MSW, and all my friends were like, you're going to kill yourself. I'm like, no, I'm not. I've listened to a lot of the science, because I learned that when you fast and you don't eat.
I heard it right. You drink water for 30 days.
Only water for 30 days and eat.
Well, no, please go.
I didn't need to go that long. Probably could have done 7 days, but I'm an extremist. I tend to be like, okay, what did I have to do? Okay, now times that by 3.
Wow.
Just to make sure that the results are hit.
That Patterson, like that's an intense, like, damn. All right, go on.
Yeah. So before I did the 30 days, I was, like I said, intermittent fasting, and then I went from a 16-hour eating window to 3 days or 1 day water only, and then back to eating in a 16-hour window, then 2 days, then 3 days, then eating for a couple of days, and 5 days, and I did a 7-day, and then I think I went to a 10-day, and then I was like, okay, Pat, this whole next month you're not gonna eat. And one thing I learned is that one thing that really helped me out in the research was that I think that it starts with a G, I can't remember it, but it's like there's a chemical in your body that tells you you're hungry. And so it's not like when we're hungry. It's just that there's a chemical that goes off around the time you would normally eat each day. So it's an average of the time you eat. So if you eat normally at 2:00 every day, this chemical will start kicking around 1:30, 1:45. It's just what the body does. If you ignore it, the chemical, the release of it will go away. That's why some people, they miss a meal or they forget to eat, that chemical will stop being produced. And so that's why people be like, oh, have you ever gone a whole day without eating and forgot? It's like, yeah, because you were so in the grind, you didn't even notice the chemical, if it did come on, and went offline. And so in fasting, about around day 3 or day 4, the chemical just shuts off completely. And so if folks can fast and get past day 5 to day 4, then it's just the mental part that makes you hungry. You're no longer physically hungry, it's the mental. So that was a whole nother journey. During the fasting, I cried. I realized how much of an anxious and bored eater I was, because if I got anxious or bored or triggered, I'd want to go eat in those 30 days. I was like, oh, wait, what? I'm not hungry. I was triggered. And so it really helped me get a good sense of like what I was experiencing in my body, what drew me to food. So anything that made me anxious, emotionally depleted me, I would go eat. And then, you learn later on, some people, I eat because I'm sad because I eat. I think it was Fat Bastard in Austin Powers, we see that some people eat to raise their serotonin levels to make themselves happy, because eating does that. So it's another way to kind of, like almost food is an antidepressant, but food, isn't that much of an antidepressant. But yeah, I started noticing those 30 days what would happen. So at the end of my 30 days, I think I had chicken broth, because that's what they say in the research. But then after chicken broth, I ate a bigger meal and my stomach was hurting. It was bad. However, the good thing about it was I started going back to eating the same amount of calories I ate when I initially lost the weight, and I wasn't gaining the weight as fast as I was before. My resting metabolism I don't know if it went back to normal, but it went back up. And so now I've been able to maintain this weight with ease, without having to worry about weight gain.
Now, do you have to go that extreme to recalibrate your?
No, I don't. No. You don't have to go extreme. I'm extreme. I think people can do maybe 4 days, 3 days. Go on YouTube, look at Dr. Jason Fung. He has videos. I have his audiobook. What? Say what?
I seek professional help.
Yeah, seek professional. Don't listen to me. I am not a doctor. Go seek professional help. And even if you watch him, you should go talk to your own doctor. This is because he's not your doctor. Right. This is just something I did, and I'm not recommending it to anybody else.
What I love about it is there's lots of layers here. One is you were becoming a new you in this process, and the people around you began noticing it. And in the reinventing you process, that's the point. We want to become a new version of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And it can be really difficult if we feel like we're not accepted, because community and love and connection is so essential for the human mind and body and desire, that we have to be conscious that if we notice that those around us are either, rejecting or judging us, that as Patterson was doing, he was trying to surround himself with different people that were living the life he wanted. He was looking at people who were modeling what he wanted, and he would model them. Like, what did I want? They're doing what I want. I'm going to, follow them. And so it's really important that you find a community of people that are striving to do more. That's what the Reinventing You process is about. The Reinventing You community is about. Is surround yourself by people striving to be more, because you're not going to be judged in the new version of self. You're going to be judged by those who think that they know who you are, but you're striving for more. Additionally, in the self-reflection, that the awareness that came, and I think that it doesn't matter what area of life you're trying to make improvements. When you're still enough and you're connected enough with yourself, like Patterson was in this 30-day fast, he recognized his emotional drivers. He recognized, I'm turning, this was my drug, my fix. I would turn to food for emotional healing, for emotional warmth, for emotional connection. And I can really relate, because I struggled, not to the degree maybe that Patterson did, but I was a compulsive eater, exerciser, and that was my mask. And I either dated men or I worked on working out, and my value and worth came from either or. And it was a constant mask that I struggled with for years. And so it's just so amazing when you can go inward and recognize, and that's part of the healing process, and not thinking that it's like all like hunky-dory, everything's going to be perfect. Like, you've got to do the internal work, like Patterson's referring to. You've got to recognize what's coming up for you and allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to exert that energy, allow yourself to share your story, to express and own it and embrace it. Every piece of it, just maintaining success, the reality of, you're going to hit roadblocks. You hit this roadblock and you're like, okay, let me look at other strategies and systems. And when I do that, I'm trying, and I may not succeed the first time, but I can try another one. And that's a reality of reinventing yourself. That's a reality of life. And we often look at it like, I'll try it once and I'll figure it out and it's all going to work out. And maybe it did one time, but the reality of life is always going to throw us curveballs, and we've got to be prepared. so that we can
Exactly.
continue to evolve as individuals. I love it. Like, holy
Yeah,
cow.
one thing I always come to, if I ever get to a block, I always try to tell myself, maybe I don't have enough information. So like when I was starting to gain the weight again, I was like, okay, there's something I'm missing that I didn't learn in the beginning of the weight loss process, which is what led me to fasting. Because keto is what led me to, because the keto, I was looking at the keto diet, and then they talked about the fasting aspect. Then I started looking at the fasting science, and then that's when my eyes opened. That's when I learned about The Biggest Loser and all of that. And so it's really figuring out, okay, what am I missing? And sometimes you'll find it by looking up. Sometimes you'll find it in the tribes you create. So one thing I've learned is that when we essentially leave our tribe, whether it be temporary or permanently, there will be folks who, supporters will be folks who kind of try to police us back into our old identity, which keeps us kind of trapped in our own prisons. But when you go to those new spaces, they will share those nuances, those counterintuitive things, those inner tribe secrets that you may have not learned in the groups that you're in before, that will help you get that one step, that will maybe put that one step on the staircase that was missing, that gets you, up the staircase and into your new transformed self.
What a great perspective. Like, if I have a block, if I'm not moving forward, if I'm at a standstill, if I've got a boulder in my way, what information am I missing?
Yes. And then one last thing I want to leave is that, I think on some level I was aware of how my trauma impacted me. However, I used my weight as a way to block it and not pay attention to it. And so once, I think the reason why I started crying and started realizing all these other things when I was losing weight, because now that the weight was shedding off, as it was the big roadblock on the road. Once it got smaller, I was able to look behind it and be like, oh, I have other issues too. And so it's like, sometimes we use our one major block to block off all the other things that are wrong with us, because on some level we're getting the secondary payoff from our own block. But then once it goes away, we're going to see like, oh, there are other things that could be affecting what's going on. Yeah. And so, so I let folks know that once you start transforming, you may be on a cycle of transformation.
Yeah.
You may start being able to see the other doorways to walk through, and don't be afraid. Use the same way of thinking. If you had confidence here, just ask yourself, how was I confident in this area of life? And take it over here. Know that, okay, if I'm going to go, let's say people are on drugs and want to, stop doing drugs. Sometimes you're going to lose friends in the process, and will support you, and know there may be a little bit of time for isolation, because you need to get these habits intact. And then some of those friends will come back. Some of them won't, but you know how to make friends. All humans know how to be social. So all of us have that intrinsic way to do that. And we could all acclimate to the new level that we're going to. There will be this turbulence in the beginning, because we don't know what's going on. There's always a little bit of turbulence on the plane, but then soon it gets smooth, it's coasting, and then you've acclimated. And now you have to just learn how to be at that new level after you've acclimated.
Yeah. And then you'll probably have something come up and you're like, I know I want to step it up again. And then you're going to go through the process again. And that's the beauty of we're constantly evolving. We constantly want more and desire more. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, trying to up-level yourself and be the better version.
Yeah.
Thank you, Patterson. And what an amazing story. And there's just so many valuable pieces that I hope that the audience really absorbs and gains and understands about themselves, whether it's their weight loss journey or in health, or maybe it's in relationships and that mask that we wear and, hiding behind. I know that I constantly, the battle of self-worth and connection with others was dependent on my weight. And for some reason, I just thought, if I'm this weight, then I'm good. So I'll binge, I'll, purge, I'll work out, and then I'm good enough if I meet a man. And that was my vicious cycle. So yeah, that's amazing. Where can people find you and all your great information and services?
So my website will be launching, I'm hoping it'll be up by New Year's most definitely, but go to pattersonemesibe.com. The website, I already have the domain. I'm actually working on it right now. And then I'm going to outsource the last piece to a team. But you can find me there. Also, you can find me on social media, on Facebook at, facebook.com/patterson.emesibe, and Instagram, the same thing, instagram.com/patterson.emesibe, or just put in Patterson Emesibe on the search. And I'm the only person that I know with the first name of Patterson. Everyone else has the last name of Patterson. So once you put Patterson Emesibe, I'll pop up in the front.
I'll make sure to find all the information too, so they can easily find you.
Perfect. And thank you. You're a great facilitator, asking great questions and pulling things out. I really appreciated that. Some things I haven't thought about in a while, and you made those connections. Like, oh yes, that's right. I think it's good that everyone has another person, or hopefully they can tune into you more and really hear those nuanced pieces. They're like, you know what? I forgot about that. Or, oh yes. And that will, as I said, that information might be that one step. So thank you for asking those questions. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your story and everything. It was amazing, and it was really heartfelt, and you definitely hit it. Like, I've cried a couple times, but man, this one, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope people can't, like, I'm like, thank you so much, Patterson. I appreciate everything.
No, thank you as well. All right. Bye, everybody.